Hello again, and today we're going to continue the wonderful story of The Lost Puppy by Holly Webb, and this is chapter 3. Are you ready? Here we go. It was so embarrassing, Christy said, blushing as she remembered the disastrous walk the day before. And then on the way back there was another big dog, a Labrador, and Lucky barked at him too. Christy had hurried into school that morning to talk to Beth before they went into class. Beth had known they were taking Lucky for his first walk that weekend. Christy had been so excited about it on Friday. Beth nodded. I wonder if it's a small dog thing. My grandmother has a Westie named Buster, and he barks at everything. Grandma says it's because he knows he's little and he feels like he's got a lot to prove. Lucky might grow out of it, she suggested a bit doubtfully. Christy sighed. Maybe. He's so sweet most of the time. You know he is. But I just couldn't get him to stop barking. Mom called Aunt Nell and she says we need to take him to obedience class. So Mom signed him up for some, but they won't start for a few weeks. I don't know what we're going to do until then. Oh, I'm sure puppy training will help. He isn't really a bad-tempered dog, just yappy. Beth smiled. He's a beautiful dog, Christy. Remembering when she'd gone over to Christy's house last week, Lucky had curled up on her lap and fallen asleep. When it was time for Beth to go home, Christy had to pick him up off her lap, still asleep, all dangly, like a stuffed animal. Maybe he just needs to get used to other dogs, Christy said. Or maybe you're right and he'll grow out of it. But I need to make sure I hold on really tightly until he does. Beth frowned thoughtfully. Couldn't you take him somewhere quieter for walks now? She suggested. Somewhere with not as many dogs, I mean. Christy nodded. That's a good idea. I'll ask Mom and Dad if they can think of anywhere. It's fall break next week, so we should have more time for walks. She hugged Beth quickly as the bell rang. Great idea. Christy's mom liked the idea of a quiet walk. She thought that it would be a fun way to start the fall break after school this Friday afternoon. What about those woods we go past on the way to your dance class? Maple Grove Park, she suggested. People take their dogs there, but I doubt that many people would be out in the middle of a Friday afternoon. That would be great, Christy said. When they got out of school on Friday, she said goodbye to Beth, who was going to stay at her grandma's house for the week, and rushed to the car, flinging her bag into the back seat. Lucky was sitting in his new wire travel crate, looking worried. He still wasn't sure about going in the car, and he wasn't really happy about being shut up in the crate, but at least he had more space than in the old cardboard carrier. The woods were only about a 15-minute drive away, and soon Christy was lifting Lucky out and letting him sniff busily at the grass. There were only a couple of other cars there. It looked like the woods were going to be empty. It was a beautiful autumn day, really warm for October, and Lucky had a wonderful time racing along with Christy and flinging himself into piles of dry leaves. They flew everywhere as he rolled and jumped and snapped at them, growling as though he were very fierce. His legs were so short that every so often he disappeared right into a drift of leaves, and then he would come up spluttering and do it all over again. Christy was laughing so much that her tummy hurt. The way Lucky's ears flapped around when he jumped made him look like he was trying to take off. Ooh, river, Anna called excitedly as they came to a little stream running between two deep, sloping banks. There was an old rickety-looking wooden bridge, and they stood on it throwing sticks in and watching them float past underneath the bridge. Lucky watched them in bewilderment, unsure why anyone would waste good sticks by dropping them into the water. He whined and tugged on the leash, wanting to go and explore some more, and at last they went over the bridge, deeper into the woods. Christy and Lucky were chasing Anna through the leaves when suddenly Lucky stopped. staring off down the little path they were following. He'd heard something. Christy could tell. He looked as though he were listening with every hair on his body. Then she heard it too, barking, but much farther into the woods. They weren't going to have the place to themselves after all. "Oh, is it another dog?" Mom said with a sigh. "Hold on to him tightly, Christy, or I can take him if you want." "It's okay, Mom." Christy wound the leash around her hand as Lucky let off a series of ear-splitting barks. He jumped around and at the end of his leash, wanting to chase after the other dog, but Christy wouldn't let him go. Anna stared at Lucky, wide-eyed. She didn't like it when Lucky barked loudly. She backed away, meaning to grab a hold of Mom's hand, but she wasn't looking where she was going. She tripped over a tree root and fell, scraping the side of her face against the rocky ground. Aw, poor Anna. "Oh, Anna," Mama came running to her, scooped her up as she started to howl. Lucky was so surprised by the noise Anna was making that he stopped barking. He didn't like loud noises either, unless he was the one making them. He whimpered and pulled at his leash, trying to get away. "Christy, can you get the wipes out of my bag?" Mom asked, examining the scrape down the side of Anna's face. Christy nodded, but Lucky was pulling and tugging at the leash, and she couldn't unzip the bag and hold him at the same time. She looped Lucky's leash over a nearby branch so she could open the bag. "Here they are." Lucky wriggled anxiously. He didn't like to see Anna upset, and he certainly didn't like the wailing. But once Mom found a couple of pieces of candy in her bag, Anna seemed to cheer up miraculously and let her wipe their face and the scrape clean. After that, Lucky stopped worrying about Anna and started to investigate the branch that Christy had fastened him to. He didn't like it. He couldn't move more than a half a foot either way without the leash pulling on his collar and hurting his neck. He couldn't go and sniff at that clump of leaves, which smelled as though a couple of other dogs had been there before. He had to check that out. And then there was a really good big stick just out of reach that he would love to chew. It wasn't fair. He shook himself impatiently, making tags on his collar jingle. "It's all right, Lucky. Hang on a minute," Christy said, but she didn't even look at him. She was still helping Mom with Anna. Lucky shook himself again, and his leash slipped off the end of the branch and thudded to the ground beside him. He stared at it in surprise. He hadn't meant for that to happen. If Anna hadn't started to howl again because Mom had accidentally wiped her face too hard, Christy would have noticed what had happened and grabbed him. But she was giving Anna a hug to cheer her up. Lucky eyed them thoughtfully. They were busy. But there was no point in coming for a walk and then just sitting on the path the whole time. He padded away, sniffing happily at the leaves. He expected that Christy would come and catch him up in a minute anyway. Another dog had definitely been passed, maybe the one he heard barking earlier. He would go and find it. He scampered along the path, nose down, following the scent and leaving Christy and Anna and Mom far behind. "Is she going to be okay?" Christy asked Mom worriedly. It looked like a nasty cut, and it was still bleeding, even after Mom had wiped it a couple of times. "Oh, she'll be fine," Mom said. "We need to go home and wash the scrape, though." "It hurts," Anna wailed. "And my fleece, my best fleece." It was her pink one with the hearts on it, and it was covered with mud all down the side. "Mom can wash it. It'll be dry by tomorrow, won't it, Mom?" Christy hugged her little sister gently. "Lucky didn't mean to scare you by barking like that. He thought he heard another dog. Didn't you, Lucky?" Christy turned around to look, but Lucky was gone. Wow. That probably must have been really a surprise for Christy, huh? Well, that's the end of chapter 3. Wow, I hope she finds Lucky soon, don't you? Well, we'll find out when we reach chapter 4. In the meantime, if you want to make sure you don't miss chapter 4, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Okay, bye for now, and thanks for joining us. Bye now.